What's up, throttlers? Aristotle Full Throttle here, and I am in the kitchen because I am in a move. I'm moving right now, so my studio is under construction or in transport. It is in transport. But I just had to talk to you guys about Spider-Man because, as you know, if you watch the show, Spider-Man was my favorite superhero of all time, was my favorite comic book growing up, and I think that Spider-Man really deserves a really good on-screen representation. And ever since Captain America Civil War, I was very hopeful because of Tom Holland's portrayal of Spider-Man. So finally, we get Spider-Man Homecoming, which is the first official Marvel-Sony crossover for Spider-Man because, as you might already know, Marvel actually back in the day sold the movie rights for Spider-Man to Sony, and then Sony made some really good movies with Sam Raimi, Spider-Man 3 notwithstanding. Now dig on this. And then they made The Amazing Spider-Man and The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Not so great, there were some good things about them, but overall, kind of a B-, if you ask me. Recently, Sony and Marvel have teamed up to bring you an actual proper Spider-Man movie that is integrated into the greater Avengers universe. Because Marvel had sold their properties like the Fantastic Four to Fox and the X-Men to Fox and Spider-Man to Sony, the only remaining characters they really had were the Avengers, so they had to make them cool. And what did they do? They made them cool. The Avengers, the first movie, is fantastic. And Spider-Man Homecoming actually takes place right after the events of the Avengers, because that was a big impactful event in the Marvel Universe, apparently, because of the Battle of New York. And there's a lot of leftover alien technology, so in Spider-Man Homecoming, Michael Keaton's character plays a working-class construction guy in New York. He needs to clean up the mess after the Avengers. And he doesn't really like the way the government is interacting with him and his contractors, and he kind of like loses out because he's the little guy and the big guy steps in and takes over the job. So he gets mad and he starts stealing some of the alien technology, making it into weaponry and selling it. Much like Tony Stark, if you think about it, he wants to be an arms dealer, but an illegal arms dealer. And then the movie fast forwards to present day, where Michael Keaton uses the alien technology to create the vulture suit so he can go around scavenging weapons, much like a vulture, and trading them illegally. And the cool thing about Michael Keaton's character is that you actually see where he's coming from. You see why he becomes jaded and he becomes angry at the system and wants to get back at it. And it's very relevant for today because of the 1%. Michael Keaton is on point because he's a great actor and he really does know how to play a winged type of creature. But the main character, Peter Parker, he's in high school. He's a kid. This is who Spider-Man is. Don't be fooled by the word man in Spider-Man, because he's really a kid. He's a spiderling, a spider kid. And he's under the guidance of Tony Stark. So the movie catches you up with the events of Captain America Civil War and how Peter Parker dealt with that situation. And we really get a sense of how Peter Parker wants to become an Avenger. He really does want to take on the responsibility, but if we know anything about Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. Instead of having Uncle Ben tell him this story, throughout the movie, Tony Stark is really that central figure in his life, that Uncle Ben type character. They don't even mention Uncle Ben. And again, that is a departure from the Sony versions of the Spider-Man movie because those just kept rehashing and rebooting and going over and over again, Uncle Ben literally saying, with great power comes great responsibility. But that message is definitely bestowed upon us as an audience throughout this movie without explicitly saying it. But I can't emphasize enough how good Tom Holland is as Spider-Man. For me, he nails the character. He really does feel like a kid from Queens, and growing up a little bit outside of Queens myself, I understand where these kids look like and where they're coming from. But Spider-Man definitely represents that which is in all of us, that sense of really wanting to do the right thing and really wanting to be a part of something bigger. It's really interesting how Spider-Man kind of represents the United States on a microcosmic level. So I highly recommend you watch this video by Wisecrack where they go over why and how Spider-Man is American as fudge. I think that's what it stands for, AF. The cool thing about this movie, it is very, I'd say like 30-40% John Hughes movie, like Pretty in Pink, high school prom, asking the girl to go to the homecoming dance type of movie. But it's also a superhero movie in the Marvel Universe. So I give Spider-Man Homecoming 4.5 froze out of 5. I think this is the best Spider-Man movie that has ever been made. I really do like the Sam Raimi versions, but there were certain things about those movies that I didn't quite get behind. Because I grew up reading Spider-Man comics, I didn't really like the whole idea of organic web slingers that just shoot out of Spider-Man's wrists. That might not make as big a deal to you, but for me, I always liked the fact that Peter Parker was smart and he's like an engineer and could figure out how to make mechanical web slingers. The suit in this movie comes with all kinds of bells and whistles because it's made by Tony Stark. I know the suit's supposed to represent the fact that Peter Parker has everything at his disposal, Tony Stark's support, but it really does come down to whether or not he has what it takes to summon within himself the strength it requires to overcome or triumph. But at times, the fact that the suit was so highly technological, it felt like I was watching an Iron Man movie. Although it was funny, it got a little bit old after a while. And the movie could have been maybe 15 minutes shorter. There are a couple things that kind of drag throughout this movie, and I think that's because it keeps cutting between a superhero, high-action Hollywood movie and a high school dramedy. Well, that's my review. How about you? Are you gonna go see Spider-Man? Who's your favorite character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Would you like to see the X-Men also join this universe? I think they might be a little too incompatible at this point, but I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below. And if this is your first time here, well, you can go ahead and subscribe. That would make me happy. You can like this video and share it. That would even bring a smile to my face. And you can turn on those notifications. And if you're like people like Jake Alves, you can help support this channel on Patreon. And that really does help me out. Another important lesson to take away from this movie, besides with great power comes great responsibility, is the fact that we need to understand our foes. The people that we don't necessarily agree with or see from their standpoint, maybe we should put ourselves in their shoes and see where they're coming from. Because that's really important. And instead of just using brute force all the time, diplomacy could be a good answer to some things, or just trying to figure out or understand where your common ground is with someone who you might consider an enemy. And I think that's really relevant in this world because we all might just get nuked at any moment now. Tomorrow we could all be fried crispy bacon. And I think that's a really important lesson because we're all human, we all feel emotions, and we all think we're right all of the time. But if we take a moment to walk in someone else's shoes for a while, we might experience similar calluses on our feet and understand where they've been. I'm Aristotle Full Throttle, your bro in the know at the fro, and I'll see you later. Spider-Man, Spider-Man, does whatever a spider can. Crawls on your pillow and in your mouth, sometimes bites you in the middle of the night.